Hello, everyone, and welcome to Molehill Mountain, episode 147. Andrew Eisen here, along with E. Zachary Knight. Hello, Zachary.
Hello, Andrew. Hello, everybody out there. This week, a couple weeks ago, you did your video, games you haven't played yet, and it got me thinking. It's like, what games do I actually own? And so this past week, I actually did an inventory of my games, and I haven't played very many of them. I published some stats on Twitter, but and there's some changes since then. But
I think I calculated I've played like 19% of my digital games, which was honestly higher than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be like 5% or something like that.
Yeah, I'm not. I haven't calculated actual percentages, but I own about 330 PC games, and I haven't fully inventoried my physical games just because I don't have very many of them. But I know I have things like Baldur's Gate 2, and Neverwinter Nights, but it's just like I don't know if I still have all the discs, and it's not like my computer doesn't have a CD drive, so I probably wouldn't play them anyways. So I've got about 330 PC games, and I had 329 at the time I published it, but then GOG Good Old Games gave away a game this week, and so I added another one.
Obsidian, something.
Yeah, I forget what it was called.
Myst-like game.
Yeah.
I didn't like Myst, but it was free, so I got it too and added it to the list. Yeah, I've been here and there working on cataloging my physical games in addition to digital, and I'm currently at 654 games in total.
Wow.
Both digital and physical, and I still need to catalog. Wait a minute, did I do? Hang on, let me see what I actually did. So yeah, I still need to do PS4, PS3. Wii, Switch, Wii U, Wii, and GameCube, and Atari.
Yeah, see, I got
7800.
I got through all of my games, and it's I have 13 NES games. At the time, I had 2 NES games, but then I found Final Fantasy III and Killer Instinct at a Goodwill the other day, and so now I have 4 Super NES games. I have 4 N64 games, but I don't have an N64 to play them on. I've got 8 GameCube games, 26 Wii games, 3 Game Boy games, 5 Game Boy Advance games, 10 DS games, 2 Genesis games, 21 PS1 games, 32 PS2 games, 33 PS3 games, and about half of those are digital games. And most of those are actually PS1 classics. So I was torn between cataloging them as PS1 games, but considering only they're digital games on the PlayStation 3, I just kind of kept them there. But I also was torn between putting them on the PSP, which is where I actually play them. But I was just like, whatever, they're PS3 games now. I have 2 actual PSP games. Only one of them is playable because the other one is sitting in my drawer here, and it's missing the clamshell thing that goes over it.
I have a couple caseless games that I got from Game Politics back when Dennis was running it. He'd get promotional games and didn't want them, so he'd send them to me, who I didn't want them either. So a couple of my Wii games, like Boogie from EA, is a game I got that way, and actually that does have the case because it came in the box with the microphone and stuff, and I would not have that game otherwise. How many Wii games did you say you have?
I have 26 Wii games, but
Matthew's making fun at you.
Yeah. Well, there's still tons of games that I want to get. And I have 16 360 games, and then I have my NES Classic.
Yeah, I haven't counted, but I think my Wii games looks like between 80 and 90. I have a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Otritsu says they've got 501 games on Steam. Yeah, most of my PC games are Humble Bundle, are games that I bought through the
Yeah.
Humble Bundles, but I've redeemed the majority of them on Steam, so
Mhm.
they're all available there. But yeah, I got a fair amount of Wii games, but
I think about
most of them
200.
are party games and family games and stuff. But it's like I found Red Steel at a thrift store a couple
That's
weeks ago, and I want to
actually
play that.
wait, is it one or
It's the first one. Yeah, I want to get the second one too. But
so
yeah,
like 200 of my digital games come from two different itch.io charity bundles. One was a good bundle, which was what it was called, uh,
huh.
and that included there's no count, and I don't want to count them. And the other one was a hurricane relief bundle. Um, I don't
Okay.
remember which hurricane it was for, but one of them has like 20 games, and the other has like 127 games or some obnoxious number like that.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah, I think I
so
remember those, and
yeah,
I didn't bother buying them, but just
I
because.
did one, good causes, and two, each one actually included a couple games I had heard of and wanted to play. I can't remember what any of them are off the top of my head, but let me see if I can scroll real quick and see if something's like. Oh man, I'd know it if I saw it, but that doesn't matter. Not that important.
Yeah,
It's for charity, and I'll probably never play any of them. Oh no, I play. You know what? I actually played out of one. I think came out of one of those was Mini Metro or something. What the hell is that game called? Is that yeah, Mini Metro? It's a fairly simple little puzzle game
yeah,
where you create a subway system in a city, and you have to uh, the can you start with like three nodes and you have natural obstructions like rivers and stuff, and
yeah,
people want to go node to node, so you have to build subway lines, and the camera just gradually keeps panning back, making the map larger and larger, and new nodes pop up, and you have to redesign the map on the fly. It's okay. It was fun for a few minutes, but it also it either I was missing something, or there was like no challenge, or maybe I'm somehow a subway savant, because I'm just like, oh, okay, thump thump, this goes here, this goes here. That's an efficient way to do it. It works. I mean, maybe the idea is be more efficient, do better, but I'm like, no, that works. So, um, I just
yeah,
got bored. I never found a fail state to it. I just kind of got bored with it after 10 minutes or
yeah.
so. But it's cute, it's colorful, it's simple, it's effective. Not a bad little game.
Yeah, Addicted to Chaos says you can buy replacement shells for the PSP games, and yeah, you can, but no game stores uh, near where I live sell them, and the only way I've been able to find them online is buying them in bulk, and I don't need to buy 50 shells for one game, so
Mhm.
I'm just waiting until I find an actual like cheap PSP game, like a sports game or something that's really cheap, and then just pop it open and swap the disc out. But until then, it's just unplayable.
Now, not to give anyone whiplash here, but changing topics, Matthew's amused by the idea of a Godzilla mockumentary, like a Godzilla nature documentary. I am assuming in the style of Planet Earth. Yeah, I'd see that. I
That would
remember
be
I had
interesting. Yeah.
back in the '90s when Jurassic Park came out. I think the last shot of the Lost World, which came out in '97. Which shows some of the dinosaurs in their natural habitat. I was like, you know what they should do? They should use that technology just to make a nature show about dinosaurs. That would be great. And they've actually done that in the years since
Yeah.
on the History
Uh,
Channel and
I
whatnot.
remember seeing a documentary style thing for dragons, and it was played seriously.
Mhm.
Just you know, talking about how dragons evolved over time, and and the discovery of a frozen dragon in a mountain cave, and
I
and
saw
it
an
was
amusing internet video. It was a short 4 or 5 minute thing. It was animated, and it was a short nature documentary on the graboid from the Tremors franchise, which I thought was really cute. But
yeah.
if they did a nature documentary for Godzilla, would we want like a David Attenborough or Morgan Freeman narrated style, like Matthew's saying, Planet Earth style, kind of third person documentary? Or would we want one starring some idiot who's running around, oh, look at the Godzilla, isn't he beautiful? I'm trying to do a Steve Irwin or something like that, getting up there and trying not to get stepped on. I don't know which one I'd rather see. Isn't she gorgeous?
Yeah.
Let's go kick her in the toe. Although I was actually thinking about other Godzilla ideas this week. I didn't get to see the movie today because I'm kind of on call. Not on call, but on standby. I'm waiting for work stuff to happen, and it didn't happen, which I'm partially glad because I didn't want to work, and partially annoyed because I've been waiting around all day. I could have seen Godzilla. Hello, 100% Jimmy. No, I do not play Fortnite.
No, I don't either.
Yeah, online multiplayer competitive titles, not my bag.
Yeah.
But I was thinking, what if Godzilla was normal size and everyone else was 300 feet tall? And then I thought, no, wait a minute. What if we had like one of our action superstars like Jason Statham or Michael Jai White or someone going after Godzilla, and I had these images of running up and smacking him in the toe, and I thought, okay, here's what happens is Godzilla actually shrinks down to like 6 foot tall. So I mean, still a fire-breathing lizard and kind of mean, but he's human size. So everyone's just punching him in the face. It would be like if there was a really mean kangaroo loose in the city, and it's just hurting a lot of
versus
people.
Godzilla.
Yeah, could be fun. Michael Jai White versus a 6 foot Godzilla.
Yeah,
that could be cool. Or maybe you have Monster Island where Godzilla and Rodan and Mothra and everyone are just kicking it, minding their own business, and then a supersized monster comes to Monster Island, who towers above them, and Godzilla and the other monsters have to face their own kaiju disaster type.
Oh man, yeah, that'd be interesting.
Hey, Lou, nice to see you back. All right, so let us get to topics, and oh man, let's knock this out of the way. Nintendo, what are you doing?
Oh yeah,
Come
I'm right
on,
about that,
man.
and I'm just
what? Why you gotta fear perfection, Nintendo? It's okay to be perfect. You don't have to take your baby and go, no, it's too perfect. We don't want that. We'll just shave a bald spot right here, just so it's not perfect. It's like, why? Why would you do that? Okay, so a few weeks ago, Nintendo did a direct for Super Mario Maker 2. And revealed during the direct is something a lot of people had speculated would be in the new title, and that is multiplayer. Both competitive and cooperative, and both online and offline. So yay! What Nintendo did not say in the direct, and in fact was not discovered until a press event, a preview event a couple weeks later, was that there are restrictions to online play. Caveat, if you will. Now, knowing Nintendo, you might think, oh, let me guess. In the online modes, you can only play with friends, right? No. No, in Super Mario Maker 2 from Nintendo, you can only play online with complete strangers.
just random people. Yeah.
What?
See, this makes no sense whatsoever. It sounds to me like they didn't want to have to program in some kind of lobby or something to connect to allow you to reach out to your friends or whatever. And then it's just like, nope, I'm online. Who else is online? Throw them together in a game.
You need the
But yeah,
subscription thing, and there's no way to play with friends directly that way. Well, you'd have to program it into the game. I mean, you can play with friends in like Splatoon 2 and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and a couple others. It's not like this doesn't work in other games. They ran out of space. You see, there's a finite amount of space for online lobbies, and there just wasn't anymore.
we have to wait. We have to wait until the internet landlords build new lobbies for Nintendo to rent, because all the existing lobbies have been rented out to other games. And it's
Chaos
just,
points out you could play with your friends if you're really lucky and you randomly get assigned them. Um, so let's see what did Nintendo have to say about that? They said originally, I think this was who was it? Was it Nintendo Life, Nintendo World Report? It was Nintendo World Report, who said that Nintendo's reasoning is that with global leaderboards, the matchmaking for competitive play would be compromised if you could play with friends. Is not said, but that limitation also extends to co-op play as well, despite those not being leaderboard driven. So you can't play with friends. So they say, "Oh, the leaderboards." Okay, but co-op doesn't use leaderboards. So what's your excuse? Look over there, and they run away. Okay, let's just pretend that that was actually a reason, because it's clearly not. We can't let you play with friends because that would screw up the online leaderboards. Okay.
are they?
So add
So,
the restriction that if you play with friends, you don't make it unranked then.
yeah.
Something that's
So
actually unranked matches exist in like Splatoon 2 and stuff. Nintendo's creating its own problem. I don't know why they do this stuff if they're doing the thing where they're like, we'll do something stupid so that we can fix it later and get internet cookies for it. Because I imagine
yeah,
Nintendo's probably, because this is just
yeah.
phenomenally unnecessary.
So what it sounds like to me is that they're afraid that if you play with friends, your friends are going to agree to purposely suck in the match to bump up your leadership, uh, your rankings in the leadership board or something like that. And it's like, that's the only thing I can think of about why they would do that.
Really,
And
that's
it
funny
just, it
because
doesn't make any sense to me. It's like, why would my friends agree to throw a game so that I could get bumped up?
and
Doesn't make any sense.
are you can play with friends locally. Is local play ranked or not? Because if it's ranked, you could do the same thing locally.
Yeah.
But here's another thing: is Nintendo clearly didn't care that much about cheating. We know because Splatoon 2, where someone like hacked the leaderboard saying Nintendo, please implement anti-cheat or something, and then they just banned that user instead of actually fixing it. So they obviously don't care about leaderboards. I don't know why they say they do. But again, even if they did, just make friend play unranked and call it a damn day, or make it a different leaderboard.
Yeah.
Have a random leaderboard and a friend leader. Oh, this is so unnecessary, and it's not a game I'm going to get anyway. I'm just annoyed on principle.
Yeah. I don't know. It looks good, but and I wouldn't mind getting it when I eventually get a Switch, just because my kids like building stuff, and they would probably have a lot of fun making Mario levels to so that they can play with each.
Well, here's another thing. Is after the Nintendo Direct, I thought to myself, you know what? Super Mario Maker 2 might be an interesting game to play during my charity stream in the fall. And I could do things where I like play levels that people who are watching have made, or I could play levels with the people watching. Nope, that's out the window. Literally can't do that now. Thanks, Nintendo.
Yeah.
So, by the way, hey, there's a cute little Super Mario Maker 2 branded stylus. North America doesn't get it. Why?
Seriously?
Yeah. Why? Who knows? I mean, it's not like other styluses don't exist, but
It's like the
come
3DS
on.
face plates that the
Yeah.
US never got, and
It's like, and that at least I have to imagine there was some marketer or economics expert with charts who said these are not going to sell enough in North America to make it worth our while. Okay, if you genuinely don't think it's going to sell enough to make it worth your while to manufacture and advertise and ship and stuff like that, okay, that sucks, but I can kind of get that. But the whole no, you can't play with your friends online makes no sense to me.
yeah. Yeah, you could still, Addicted to Chaos
Yeah,
says
I
you could
could
still
I could
play
do half of
levels.
that,
Yeah,
yeah, but I can't play. I can't do a co-op or competitive play with people watching
yeah,
during the stream because Nintendo won't let us because we might have more fun. I don't know.
yeah. No
It's just
idea.
like we want you to have fun. Whoa, whoa, whoa! Not that much fun. After all, we're making a Pokemon game you play by sleeping. So we don't want you to actively have that much fun, Relax. The next one is Pokemon Poop, where you play it on the toilet. So you got Pokemon you play on the couch in front of the TV. You got Pokemon you play on the handheld when you're on the train or the bus or whatever. You got the Pokemon you play on the phone as you're walking around, and you got the Pokemon you play when you sleep. I need one for on the John. I mean,
Yeah,
technically, I guess I could play Pokemon Go or actually Pokemon Go is a good name for, for on the John type of game, but
yeah. Well, you could play Pokemon Quest while sitting on the John, but yeah,
Matthews says some suspect it's to hide bad net code. You know, 15 years ago, I might have bought that, but I don't. That could be true, sure, but this day and age, I don't believe that. I don't believe that Nintendo is literally that incompetent at something that has been standard for over a decade. I could be wrong, but I don't believe
well, this is Nintendo, so
so.
yeah,
Okay. Um. Yeah. Okay. So there's that. So let's move on. There's the stylus. There's Mario. What else did we want to talk about today? Oh yes. Okay. What we didn't get to last week. So um, this is something we'd known pretty well was going to happen for a while, but the World Health Organization has officially recognized gaming disorder and hazardous gaming as uh, disorders that are officially recognized in the International Statistical Classification of Diseases and Health-Related Problems, which is a very good name that's easy to remember and rolls off the tongue. So, let's quickly look at these two things. So, gaming disorder is under the disorders due to addictive behaviors uh, classification. So there
yeah,
goes mental, behavioral, and neurodevelopmental disorders, and there's a bunch of different things under there. And then there's disorders due to substance use or addictive behaviors, and there's a bunch of stuff there. And then disorders due to addictive behaviors. So gaming order was slotted right under gambling disorder, and they are exactly the same, other than the word gambling has been changed to gaming. So here's what gaming disorder. I'm actually on gambling disorder, but it doesn't matter because, as I said, they're the same. Gaming disorder is characterized by a pattern of persistent or recurring gaming behavior, which may be online or offline. It's manifested by one, impaired control over gaming, onset, frequency, intensity, duration, termination, context. Number 2, increasing priority given to gaming to the extent that gaming takes precedence over over other life interests and daily activities. And number 3, continuation or escalation of gaming despite the occurrence of negative consequences. The behavior pattern is of sufficient severity to result in significant impairment in personal, family, social, educational, occupational, or other important areas of functioning. That is exactly verbatim, exactly what gambling disorder says. And kind of a fun note is gaming used to be the word that referred specifically to gambling. So that's fun.
Yeah.
There,
Well, that's true because, like, if I go, like every year, when new legislation is introduced in Oklahoma, I'll do searches for specific terms, uh, but I got to remember to not look up gaming because gaming, it refers when it comes to Oklahoma's legislative code, refers to gambling, like casinos and lotteries and stuff. It does not refer to video games. And game is another one that's really tough to use when searching because that will most often refer to animals, wildlife. Because there's there's a big hunting scene in Oklahoma, so there's
in
a
fact, the
lot
word
of gaming
gamer,
regulation.
the origin of the word gamer originally referred to gamblers.
Yeah.
So, also, gaming disorder, along with gambling disorder, are both split into two different categories: predominantly online and predominantly offline. And
Yeah.
the difference between the two is the word "not." One says, gaming that is primarily conducted over the internet, and the rest is exactly the same. The other is that is not primarily conducted over the internet, and the rest is
Yeah.
exactly the same. The other entry is hazardous gaming, and similarly, it's slotted right under hazardous gambling or betting, and is almost word for word exactly the same. It's listed under, let's see, the section is factors influencing health status or contact with health services, problems associated with health behaviors, and hazardous substance use. So, hazardous gaming. Hazardous gaming refers to a pattern of gaming, either online or offline, that appreciably increases the risk of harmful physical or mental health consequences to the individual or to others around this individual. The increased risk may be from the frequency of gaming, from the amount of time spent on these activities, from the neglect of other activities and priorities, from risky behaviors associated with gaming or its context, from the adverse consequences of gaming, or from the combination of these. The pattern of gaming is often the pattern of gaming is often persists, and that's grammatically incorrect. Shame on you, ICD. The pattern of gaming is often persists in spite of awareness of increased risks of harm to the individual or to others. Is that same faux pas in hazardous?
No, it is not. I don't. I checked that
Pattern of
myself.
gambling and betting often persists. Yep. So someone had a copy paste error.
Yeah.
So,
But I think it's kind of just a silly side note here, but it's kind of interesting to see this in the same section as problems with hygiene behavior and oral health and sun exposure, and
yeah,
it's like all these things are what you would consider the stereotypical gamer, one who never goes outside and never gets sun exposure, one who doesn't has poor hygiene, and there's lack of physical exercise, inappropriate diet or eating habits. It's just kind of funny how they kind of group all this stuff together.
Yeah, we've got, as you said, physical. So it goes in this order: lack of physical exercise, hazardous gambling or betting, hazardous gaming, problems with inappropriate diet or eating habits, problems with hygiene behavior, problems with oral health behaviors, problem with sun exposure behavior, problem with behaviors related to psychological health or well-being. That's fairly broad. Problem with health literacy. and then there's some other unspecified ones. If you're curious, in the disorders due to substance use or addictive behaviors, substance use, lots of stuff in there: alcohol, cannabis, synthetic cannabinoids, opioids, sedatives, all kinds of fun stuff. But
Yeah.
under disorders due to addictive behaviors, there is gambling and there is gaming. That's it. There is a subsection for other specified disorders due to addictive behaviors, but there's nothing in it. It's just kind of a
Hmm.
placeholder until we come up with something that's addictive other than gambling and gaming, which makes me wonder where'd the sex addiction thing go? That's got to be in here somewhere.
That might be in a different. See, would that
Disorder,
be under personality disorder?
sexual
No.
dysfunction,
Disruptive behavior. I don't know.
No,
Yeah, I'm not sure.
whatever. So the game industry, of course, is against this. They're like, hey, games are good. Games for education, games for health. They have all these benefits, which is great, but completely irrelevant to the point. Also, go away, ESA. We don't. Um, Now, my thoughts on adding a gaming disorder into the official list of diseases. Um, my thoughts on it are does one of the main arguments you hear a lot is gaming disorder is the symptom, not the problem itself.
Hmm.
So there's kind of the concern that we're either diagnosing the wrong thing or unnecessarily creating a stigma when it's the when that's not actually the problem, that's a symptom of the problem,
Yeah.
which makes sense. My take on it is, does the addition of a gaming disorder enable us to help more people with these symptoms? If it does, then, well, okay, then we'll just have to work on that stigma. Uh, but I don't know enough about the World Health Organization, or if the lack of an official diagnosis for gaming disorder hamstrung anyone in any way. Like, nope, sorry, can't help you because there's nothing in the book. You know, uh,
Yeah.
my
Well,
whole
and
thing is, does this allow more people who need help to get the help they need? If it does, hey, great.
yeah, from what some of the comments that I've read on this is that this isn't an official declaration that there is a disease and this is the disease or
Yeah,
whatever. This is more of a this is a problem that we have recognized, and now now the medical community can look at this and do research on it and stuff. Like,
right. Because
I
you have to
guess I
remember,
guess when it comes to like research grants, if you want a medical research grant on gaming disorder, if there is no authority stating that that's a medical issue, you might not be able to get the research grant. That might be something that that would benefit from this, but I don't think that we're going to next in the next month or two find have a bunch of gamers anonymous and gamer detox clinics and stuff pop up all over the place. We're not going to see that, but that would be kind of sad if we actually do see some of that. But
and if this were 2005 or six, there would be people, and you know which ones, who would be all up in the news. People,
yeah,
promoting themselves as an expert on this and saying that, see, gaming is a disease. Even the experts say so. Um, but that table is a list. It is a list of symptoms. So. Um,
yeah,
Again, not my area of expertise, but at the end of the day, if it helps people who need help get help, then yeah.
yeah. And like you mentioned earlier, this is a symptom of larger issues because no, very few people just pick up a game and immediately get addicted to it or whatever. It's generally there's some um, outside element that pushes people towards gaming as some kind of release or positive feedback that they're missing from the rest of their life. And yeah, it could very well be that this would be the sign that they do need attention, but it's definitely not the disease, but the symptom for most people. And and there's other elements to this, like you know, gambling could also be an element of this, especially if somebody's spending a lot of money on loot boxes or whatever, which we're going to get into as well. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the medical community comes up with
Mm.
based on this, because this guideline doesn't go into effect until 20 something
Was it 2020?
2020, I think.
When was it published?
It'll come into effect January of 2022.
2022.
So,
Okay.
so this isn't
I
the
knew there was
official
a two in it.
documentation. This is just an early release of the
And it's
documentation.
also continually being edited and updated. So maybe by the time 2022 rolls around, someone will fix that grammatical error that I pointed out.
Maybe,
And I do
but
find it kind of funny that they literally copy pasted the gambling
yeah,
definitions. So because and yeah, pretty much exactly the same thing. So it's an activity you engage in to the detriment of your health.
yeah,
Yeah. Um, so okay, Otritsu says if it's on a list of symptoms, that's not really a problem or a stigmatic thing. That's true. Gaming and the actual act of gambling in and of itself is not a problem. All of them, however, because these activities can be abused, do carry stigmas to differing degrees, depending on
yeah,
what activity we're talking about, depending on where on the timeline we are. Like 2005, 2006. We would have pundits up on all the news stations going, "It's a disease and it's killing our children." Today in 2019, it's not going to make it much weight.
yeah,
You'll see it in some of the gaming blogs. Game politics was still around. We definitely would have covered it, but about
yeah,
all you're seeing it in is like GameIndustry.biz and maybe Gizmodo and a few others like that.
yeah. Well, yeah,
You're
the
not going to
gaming
see it on
blogs have
IGN.
all picked it all up.
Mhm,
I've seen it on Kotaku, Polygon, and
mhm.
GameIndustry.biz, Gamma Sutra, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, but
But
I haven't seen it on like Forbes or Vice or
yeah,
the MSN or any of the mainstream. No one cares. Um, scary games aren't scary anymore, and
yep,
no one seems to care about virtual reality enough to be afraid of it. So, I mean, maybe if that gets more popular, or they more prominently use it for pornography, then someone will care. But
yeah,
so far, Ungats. All right, let's move on to the big one. And I don't know how big this is, but it's a legislative proposal to regulate loot boxes and microtransactions in video games. Which video games?
all
All
of
of
them.
them. If you
Yeah,
read the fine print, it's really interesting how they crafted this law. Again, which is only in the proposal phase right now. It hasn't been voted on.
yeah. I don't even think it's been assigned a bill number yet. So yeah,
Let
that's how
me
early in the process it is, as far as I
do.
know.
It is not have a number. You're right. There's. It's just a bill.
Yeah,
Um, so what it seeks to do is it seeks to restrict the sale. Publishers cannot publish, and online distributors cannot distribute. I guess GameStop and Walmart are in the clear. Unless I missed something in my reading of the bill, it goes after publishers of these games, and online distributors, distributors who have an online sales platform. So if you're selling at a physical brick and mortar, it doesn't appear to count. I'm not sure if that was
Hmm.
intended or missed, but I noticed that
Well,
on
I
the
think it
screen.
might be that because the target is typically going to be digital games, whereas physical games, most of them. Well, I guess you can't really say most of them, but there's fewer games on physical platforms that require or have loot boxes in them. But it's not to say that they aren't
Star
there. It's
Wars
just
Battlefront 2 was sold in stores, geniuses.
yeah,
And it had loot boxes so bad that EA took them out on its own. It didn't need your law.
yeah. But
So,
I guess that game publishers would kind of cover that
yeah.
in
The
general.
other,
I think it's probably because a lot of games are self-published on digital platforms where
Mhm.
you're very very rarely going to find games that are self-published at Walmart. Uh, so maybe that's why they're going this route rather than encompassing all games regardless of distribution. But all right,
so what kind of so if a game has a loot box or microtransactions, specific microtransactions, but we'll get to that. Um, it has to be a minor-oriented game, meaning that the game targets an audience under the age of 18. But um,
yeah,
I I'd have to I forget exactly where it is, but there's another wrinkle in the law somewhere that says uh, any game that could reasonably have anyone under 18 playing it. So even if it's a game that's specifically targeting an adult audience, if a kid could play it, it still counts. So essentially, this law targets every game. So I don't know why they just didn't say every game in the first place. So what it
well, they
comes
got to get that for the kids
for the
aspect. Yeah,
children.
for the children
Yeah.
aspect to the law. Uh,
Um, other evidence demonstrating that the product is targeted, right? Ah, so getting wrapped in my own cord here. I wish there were better tabs on this thing because I'm scrolling back and forth trying to find the sections that I want. So microtransactions, what they're looking at is pay to win microtransactions. They define these as any thing you buy that eases a user's progression through content otherwise available within the game without the purchase of such transaction. And it's phrased like that because they exclude new content. Uh, so
yeah,
Stuff that uses users' progressions eases a user's progression through the game, assists a user in accomplishing an achievement within the game, assists a user in receiving a reward associated with the game, or permits a user to continue to access content of the game that had previously been accessible to the user but have been made inaccessible after the expiration of a timer or number of gameplay attempts. What that's going after is the free to play mobile type games where
you
you can
have a
only do so
stamina
many
bar
with a
or
stamina bar, and
yeah,
the game says if you pay us money, you can keep playing or wait a few hours. That's what they're talking about.
yeah.
What is excluded from how are they phrasing it? Pay to win microtransactions is difficulty modes. So uh, what's interesting though is it says it will not include add-on transaction, blah 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 blah. If it provides the user with access to a new mode of play that makes progression through the content of the product more difficult than it would be without the transaction, as perceived by a reasonable user. So not strictly new difficulty modes. You could not sell an easy mode. You could sell a hard mode or ultra hard mode or nightmare mode or something like that, but easy mode, that would be no. Cosmetic alterations are okay. So costumes, face paint, stamps, things like that. That's fine. Emotes. and additional game content. Says uh, new content added to the product, provided that the add-on transaction can be purchased only once. So not a resource thing. Like they couldn't add
Yeah.
a new healing potion that you just bought 20 of. Um, so that's the gist of it. All games you can, if you're a publisher, you can't make them. If you're an online distributor, you can't distribute them. You cannot distribute any game that has a
Yeah.
loot box or microtransactions that uh, benefit that make the game easier to play or help you do something in the game that you could otherwise do in the game.
Yeah. Now, this law leaves a lot of, to me, it leaves a lot of question marks in this, specifically because some games are designed in ways that you wouldn't jump to the conclusion that they're loot boxes. Specifically, the one I'm thinking of is Pokemon Go. Okay,
Mhm.
there are no real loot boxes in the game. The only thing I can see in the game that even resembles a loot box would be the eggs. Um, you spin a Pokestop, and if you have space in your inventory, you might be able to pick up an egg, and then you could stick that egg in an incubator, and you walk a certain distance, and you hatch the egg and get a random Pokemon from that egg group. There's 4 egg groups in there. Ones that takes 2 kilometers to hatch, 5 kilometers, 7 kilometers, and 10 kilometers, and you don't know what you're going to hatch until it actually hatches.
Right. I
So
Go ahead.
would that be considered a loot box under this?
I
Specifically because there's no way to actually get rid of these until you hatch them,
mm,
but you have one free egg incubator that
okay.
you can use an infinite number of times, but you can purchase 2 classes of incubators. One is similar to your infinite one, but it has a limited number of uses, and then the other one actually reduces the distance you need to walk to hatch an egg. Would that, though, that inclusion of a purchase to help you hatch more eggs faster, would that be considered a pay to win
Yes.
mechanic?
Under the wording, the way I read this particular, the way it's written, yes, that absolutely would.
Yeah. And the other thing is you can also purchase things that are called lucky eggs, which you pop one of these and you get double the experience for everything you do within 30 minutes. And then there's another one that you can pop and you get extra stardust, which you can use to power up your Pokemon for 30 minutes. And then and then there's lures and incense that help you catch more Pokemon. So I guess technically all of those could also be pay to win mechanics, but
Hmm.
yeah, it's just it's just kind of interesting, because there's a lot of wiggle room. I think that you could argue that there's not really a pay to win mechanic so much in Pokemon Go unless you're really really into the PvP scene, which is pretty much brand new, and there's not really any benefit towards doing other than like you do 1 or 2 matches with a friend a day and you get some extra goodies, but you know your friend also gets the same goodies, even if it doesn't matter if you win or lose, you both get the same thing at the end of the match. So
I think one of the areas where that would potentially need clarification is does this count or not would be, for example, in the Mortal Kombat games. Does any fighting game a new DLC character? Well, I mean,
I think that would fall
ostensibly,
under new content rather than a
well,
pay to win mechanic.
true, unless the DLC character was like super overpowered and you could use them to beat the game more easily. Potentially, I mean, I think usually when a new character is released for a fighting game, they're balanced, so
Yeah, so
they're,
that
it's not supposed to be so overpowered that it's like, well, now the game's easy, because that would arguably fall within the scope of this law. But I think, when NetherRealm releases Shang Tsung and Nightwolf and Spawn and whoever else in the upcoming Mortal Kombat pack, they're ostensibly supposed to be balanced, so they're not measurably better and make the game
yeah,
easier. So they would be just additional content, so they'd be fine. Uh, but then you think about, well, what about new weapons in games? It's like, well, what if they release just a new badass weapon? Well, it depends. If it's available in the game already, then no.
yeah. Well, and I think if well, I guess see that's another area where I would wonder, because like say you're playing World of Warcraft,
Okay.
just to throw a game out there,
Yeah.
and they announce that there's a new sword in the game, and it's the best sword in the game, and
Mhm.
in order to get it, you can do one of two things. You can go and beat this super mega hard boss and get it as a loot drop, or you can pay us $10 and get it.
Yeah, that would be covered by the law.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be allowed.
So that wouldn't be allowed. Okay.
However, if you just sold that one sword, that would be okay, as long as it didn't ease your progression through the game. So you do, depending on what game type you're talking about, you do run into some interesting issues. Let me take a game that I'm more familiar with, like Monster Hunter, which someone asked me to talk about. So let's talk about Monster Hunter. Um, what if what if
Here,
Capcom?
kill this 200-ton monster and get a small chance that you'll find a scale
Yeah.
at the
Well,
end of beating this giant
what
monster that's covered in scales.
what if Capcom had a design contest like they've had, and they say, okay, this person won the design contest for this awesome new Switch axe, and so they make a new Switch axe and they just sell it for $1, and all the money goes to charity or whatever. But they sell a new this Switch axe is not available in the game. You can't build it with any of the parts in the game. So is it new content? Yes, because you can't get it in the game. Okay, but it's a badass Switch axe, so if you bought this Switch axe, you could play through the beginning of the game and make it super easy because you have this awesome Switch axe. But once you got to the point in the game where you were, supposed to use it, unless they like locked it to a certain hunter rank or something. See, there'd be ways around it.
Yeah.
Um, there is actually another important part of this law, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I would like to say up front that this law, as written, essentially making it illegal, and it's funny because the crime is per unit. So it's like it's not just, oh, you sold a game, well, that's one count. No, it's how many copies of that game did you sell? Because that's that stacks up.
Yeah.
So we have a law that says no game can have loot boxes, no game can have pay to win microtransactions. As written, I am totally fine with this law. I do have problems with it for different reasons, but I actually don't have a problem with this law. A law that says you can't do stupid microtransactions or loot boxes. Hey, I'm all for that. Yeah, a lot of games like Hearthstone, which is a perfectly fine game. I think it's free to play, and you buy card packs, which are essentially loot boxes to get different cards, and there's no upper limit to them, so you can just keep spending money on it. Hearthstone would
Yeah.
have to change the way it mechanically the way its monetization system works. But me
Yeah.
personally, I hate loot boxes and I hate microtransactions, and I'm kind of iffy on DLC anyway. So if the world made it impossible for developers for publishers. So if it ended up that I only ever have to pay once for any one game, I am totally cool with that.
Yeah.
Now,
So
what just
yeah.
ideally, what they're specifically trying to do, what the law does. What do you think about it? Do you have a problem
Um.
with it, or are you like, yeah, screw loot boxes?
Yeah. I see that's kind of my thing is that I'm not. I
Because
don't.
this is not impinging on free speech or artistic expression at all. This has nothing to do with
Yeah,
speech
this is
or art.
a
This is a
business
transaction,
model, not yeah. This is
business
a
model.
business
Yes.
model, and that's where it kind of yeah. And we would frown upon business models that target kids in order to extract the maximum amount of money out of them if the product were physical. And but it's like my thing is that I'm a free market kind of guy,
Mhm.
and I think if as long as nobody is really being harmed in anything, let them do what they want. But that's the thing is that we do have instances where people are being harmed, where their kid gets on and plays Candy Crush and ends up spending $600 in one sitting because their parents weren't paying attention. That to me is a legitimate harm, and there should be ways to mitigate that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And I think that's something that Google and Apple have done fairly well in giving parents the tools to limit those kind of limit those kind of transactions. But I'm all for personally the only kind of purchasable DLC that I really care about is purely new content. If you're gonna sell me a
Yes.
complete game and then 6 months later you announce, hey, we've got 20 new levels, and you can pay $10 and get these 20 new levels. That to me, that's fine, as long as I feel like I got a full complete experience from the original purchase.
Right. As long as,
um,
even if it's true, as long as the perception is that you didn't just carve that out of the main game to sell to me later, then it's
Yeah, which to me, if they announce DLC the same day they announce the game,
or
that
six
to me
months
is
before
the
the game comes out.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
that to me is they're carving stuff out to sell to me
Hmm.
later, and
Hmm.
that ticks me off. But if they come out 6 months after the game's release and say, hey, guess what, we got 20 new levels, I'm like, sweet, I enjoyed this game, I want to get those 20 new levels. That to me is good. Something like Skullgirls, where they released Skullgirls, and then I don't know how much longer after that they had an Indiegogo campaign to release a bunch of new fighters for the game.
Hmm.
That to me, that was really awesome, and it's like it didn't matter if you backed the Indiegogo campaign, you still got the new fighters. The campaign was to fund the creation of the new fighters, and everybody got it. It's just those who backed it got them earlier, or something like that. And that to me was a really cool thing. But yeah, I don't like things like Battlefront and Fortnite and all their stuff, all their stupid loot boxes. I don't mind Pokemon Go's in-game purchases, because they have a mechanic in there where you can earn the coins to make these purchases if you want them. It's a slower process because you only get 50 coins a day, but if you aren't in a rush to get things, it's not too bad. But if you really want that, if you really want to do 50 raids in a day, you have the option of paying $10 and being able to get a bunch of raid passes. That to me is fine, as long as I feel like the transactions are truly optional and are just there to make me more engaged with the game. But yeah, there's certain things that just kind of drive me up the wall.
In addition to legitimate harms, such
Mhm.
as predatory practices and psychological manipulation that can prey on
Yeah.
those vulnerable to such things to bilk them of lots and lots of money that they can't afford, an actual harm.
Yeah.
There are also consequences to a lot of these types of transactions, in that they're making the games worse. For example, because they're allowed to do loot boxes and microtransactions and stuff, they're deliberately making the games worse so that you will buy stuff to
Yeah.
make the game better.
And some
That's not
companies.
really an actual harm, at least not on the same level
Yeah.
of bilking people out of lots of money. But it's really annoying because I like games and I play them
Yeah.
for fun,
Well,
and I don't
and
really
then
like
you
publishers
have.
making them less fun just so I'll spend more
Yeah.
money to either not play that portion of the game or to make it more fun.
Yeah, and then you have game companies that aren't even hiding the fact that they're screwing with your head. Like last year, it came out that Activision had,
Well,
I think it was a patent.
they keep bragging about it on their damn investor conference calls, which are
Yeah,
open and we can hear you.
yeah. Well, it's like Activision had this had some kind of thing published talking about what they wanted to do with this, and it was like part of it was pairing on online multiplayer matches, pairing up people who don't spend money with people who do spend money, so that the people who spend money get that psychological benefit of, oh, I'm so much better than these guys, and the people who don't spend money, get that psychological hit that, oh man, if only I had that cool stuff that they bought, I would be better. And just a way to manipulate people into spending more money. And it's like, this was a public thing that got published somewhere. I think it was a patent or something. But when I read that, I was just completely disgusted that that was actually something that they were purposely investing time and effort into, and it was just
Stupid. No one's gonna.
yeah. But yeah. but but when it comes to these loot boxes, we're seeing laws come up in like Belgium and the Netherlands, where they're making these things either illegal, or you're required to publish the odds of getting whatever from the loot boxes, and Google has gotten involved in that, where if you're going to publish a game on the Google Play Store and you're going to include loot boxes, you have to publish the odds of getting every item from the loot boxes, and this is going to be a requirement where you can't list your game unless you've published that information with them, and yeah,
A couple other examples. I think Rocket League did that. One of the FIFA games did that,
yeah,
where they were actually it's something similar, at least, where they were disclosing the loot box odds. And I think this kind of self-regulation is what the industry needs to, at the very least, adopt to get the government off its back. Because if it doesn't, this is the kind of stuff that the government is going to do. Okay, now that I've said that I'm actually fine with this law, for the most part, I'm actually fine with the effects of this law. Here's where I actually have a problem. And you may find this interesting, because my problem is the whole thing about where it's targeting games that it says no loot boxes and no microtransactions in games that are targeting kids or games that kids might play, which is every game. But the fact that they're doing that,
yeah,
I don't know what the ratio is. But I do know that a significant number of people who run afoul of the predatory practices that a lot of the gaming industry can engage in are adults. A
yeah.
lot of the people actually harmed by loot boxes and overspending on microtransactions are adults who have money to spend. The kids aren't harmed as much by this because they're not spending their money. They don't have any. They're spending your money, Dad. They're getting mom or dad's credit card. So
Yeah.
a lot of the harm, a lot of the vulnerable people are adults. And the fact that this law is targeting games specifically targeting children tells me that this is cynical, political, for the children pandering, and not anything that was introduced in good faith.
Yeah,
That's
and that
where my main problem with this game.
yeah, and I completely agree there, because we have we have this coming in, and they include the games kids might play. So technically, this could cover Grand Theft Auto. This could
Yeah, oh,
cover
absolutely.
Mortal Kombat, because kids will play them, and yeah, kids do play them, and it's not something that you can you can prevent at all. And we had this exact same argument back in the days of Brown versus EMA, where it was, you can't sell these games to kids. Well, 90% of the time, the parents are buying them for the kids. What's this law going to do?
Yeah, check out my personal plug. Check out my video. What the hell is it called? Postal 2, a pacifist's game, where I
Yeah,
go over the actual law and why it was disingenuous in the first place, but also just functionally why it couldn't possibly have
yeah,
ever worked. Anyway,
yeah.
sorry.
But this also, reminds me of the FDA and how they're cracking down on fruit and candy flavored vaping liquid. Um, where it's like, oh, these flavors appeal to kids, and so that means you're selling this stuff to kids, or kids are going to buy it more often. It's like, but adults like chocolate flavored stuff, adults like cherry flavored stuff, adults like strawberry flavored stuff. It's like, why can't adults have yummy flavors with their vaping liquid? It's this kind of stuff just, a lot of this stuff just doesn't make sense, because it's a veiled attempt at just attacking an industry rather than specifically trying to protect children. And that's where, as Otrites says, good faith in politics is an oxymoron.
Yeah, a couple people in the chat are knocking me for juxtaposing politics and good faith. Yeah, sadly, not a lot, as Chaos says, few
Yeah,
things in politics are brought up in good faith.
yeah, and when it comes to loot boxes and stuff, a lot of people like to bring up things like Hatchimals and blind bags, with little toys in them.
Yeah.
They bring up Magic the Gathering baseball cards, that kind of stuff,
Garbage
and
Pail Kids!
and but um but the thing is like, when it comes to toys, there's no pay to win mechanic. Just because you bought 50 toys doesn't mean you're winning something, because they're just toys. Same thing with baseball cards. There's no game involved with baseball cards. But when it comes to things like Pokemon and Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh, that kind of stuff, I could see the pay to win mechanic, because back when I actually played Magic the Gathering on a regular basis, I always hated going up against the people who had $200 a month to spend on cards, because that's what they would do. They would go and spend $200 on cards and build the best deck ever. And it's like going up against my deck, where it's like I spent $200 over a period of 2 years to get this deck that I have. And I would get my butt kicked all the time, because I didn't spend $200 a month on it.
What's interesting is games like Hearthstone would fall afoul of the law just due to the loot box-esque mechanic of buying blind card packs.
Yeah.
However, if it wasn't for the loot box mechanic, it might be okay, because like buying a fighter in Mortal Kombat or any other fighting game, ostensibly all the cards should be balanced so that no matter how many cards you buy, you should be able to win with any deck. So
Yeah.
ostensibly it should be balanced, and it would be
Well,
really
there's still some
over, Scorpion is OP or something
yeah.
like that.
Well, but there's still some skill base aspect to trading card games, where you could have a collection of 10,000 cards, but if you didn't know how to properly combine them to the best effect, you're going to get your butt kicked pretty quickly.
Or it rules that Wizards from the Coast has to nerf a particular card because it's overpowered.
Yeah.
So that's where we're going, people.
Uh,
To give another example of why I think the law is disingenuously motivated is looking at the whole for the children point. Let's pretend that the law actually effectively was narrowly tailored to games for children and actually functionally acted that way. What that says is the people who drafted the law don't care about a large chunk of the people who are hurt by the loot box and microtransaction and other predatory business practices.
yeah.
And that's why I have a problem with this law. And that's why I feel that it's just cynical political pandering rather than a genuine effort to address an actual problem that exists. Now,
Yeah.
here's where we get into something really juicy and interesting. If you read the law, the proposed law now, and scroll down to the bottom, there's a real interesting extra point to this law. So in addition to making it illegal to sell and distribute these particular games with these particular sales mechanics, it also requires that the Federal Trade Commission, after 2 years from the date that the law would be enacted, they have to provide to the various congressional committees a study on the effects of pay-to-win microtransactions and loot boxes. Here's what it says. The reports must analyze the use of pay-to-win microtransactions and loot box design practices in specific interactive digital entertainment products, analyze the psychological effects of pay-to-win microtransactions and loot boxes on users, study game development practices relating to pay-to-win microtransactions and loot boxes, including A/B testing of various pay-to-win microtransactions or loot boxes, analyze the effects, blah, 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 document different types of blah, 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 analyze this, blah, 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 blah. That's really good. Maybe what would be a better approach here would be to cut all the crap in the front of the law out and just do that bit. Just do that bit. Take 2 years to study what's actually happening, then look at the results, and then figure out how to combat. Now that we know what's going on. I really like the end of this. The end of this law. I like this idea of analyzing and documenting and studying and reporting on what's actually happening, so that we can write an intelligent law if need be.
Yeah, and here they have it completely backwards, where it's like, we're going to pass a really, a broadly worded law,
then
later on,
then see if what we did worked.
Yeah, that to me is backwards, and I do think that we need more research into this, and I know there's plenty of people out there already who are researching the best ways to manipulate people into buying loot boxes, and game companies are hiring these people to design their systems. But we definitely need some research into these purchasing practices, whether that comes mandated from the government or just interested institutions who have the will to take this kind of stuff on. But it's definitely something that I would love to see researched. But
all right, how about this completely different approach? Maybe completely unworkable, maybe a really dumb idea, but I'm going to propose it anyway. Here we go. You, meaning publishers, can only make X amount of dollars per title. So there's an upper. You can do whatever you want. You can do loot boxes. You can do microtransactions. You can do whatever the hell you want, but you can only ever make an upper limit of $300. Whatever, $300. You can only ever make $300 per copy of a game. It could be free to play. It could be $60 up front. Whatever. It's $60. You sell a bunch of loot boxes and microtransactions, but as soon as the user racks up $300 or whatever amount, they can't buy anything else for the game, and everything else unlocks. Kind of like Pokemon Picross for the 3DS, which is a free-to-play game, which is
Yeah.
one of those.
Magikarp Jump, Pokemon Quest, basically any Pokemon game you get other than
Yeah,
Pokemon
it's a
Go.
free-to-play game, but it has microtransactions. It's one of the games where you play it for a while, and then it has a cool-off timer, and you have to wait a few hours before you can play it
Yeah.
again. Or you can buy gems or whatever to recharge it so you can keep playing. But with Pokemon Picross and others, I'm guessing, you can only ever buy like $30 worth of jewels, and
Yeah.
at that point, you cannot buy any more jewels are
Yeah.
completely free.
Yeah.
So even
Magikarp
though
Jump was like $35. Pokemon Quest was about the same, $30 or so. And yeah, it's like, once you spent that much money, you've bought all the content in the game.
yeah, so
And
essentially,
yeah.
games can only ever cost. I don't know what you do with stuff like a Steel Battalion, which had that big ass controller, which is $200 in the first place. But
Yeah.
there might be some exceptions here and there, but that could work. Another thing that might work is outlaw fake intermediary money. The fake in-game currency that you have to spend real money on to buy the stuff you actually want. Get rid of that. Make that abstraction layer illegal.
Are you
So
talking about
any
like double currency games? Like, you've got gold coins and you have platinum coins, but the platinum coins you can only get the gold coins you can get from normal gameplay, but the platinum coins you can only get from spending real money. Or are you just talking about just in general any currency that you have to pay real money to get?
any currency you pay real money to get to use to buy stuff. Why they do that is because there's that cycle. It's kind of like when they something is priced $4.99, you'll think of it as $4 instead of $5, right?
Yeah.
Same thing here. Oh, I'm not spending actual money. I'm just spending 500 starfish. What are 500 starfish? Well, you just spent $90 on 2,000 starfish. So, but you don't know what the hell that is. You're just spending star. I've got all these I've got 2,000 starfish. It
Yeah.
only cost
Well,
me
I guess
$20. Get rid of
yeah.
that crap. That layer of abstraction between people spending anything that you actually have. You cannot spend funny money on if you're obtaining stuff. It has to be actual real money. You can't do
Yeah.
that abstraction layer. That could be
What
a
if they
thing
do it
that the
like a
industry.
1-to-1 ratio, just so that 99 in-game coins is 99 cents real world money?
I
I don't
would
know.
still say no. Just if if you want to sell stuff, fine, but it has to be
Yeah.
money. You can't do the thing. It's like we're selling all these little recharge potions, but you can't just spend $2 on them. No, no, no. You have to spend money to buy starfish to spend on the
Yeah.
recharge potions. No
Well,
starfish.
and I think part of this is part of the reason they do that is so that they can block it out. Like if you want something that's 200 coins, but you could either spend 99 cents to get 100 coins and then have to make a second transaction to get another 100 coins to get the 200 you need, or you can spend $5 and get 500 coins
Mm.
and then only spend
Yeah.
200 of it. It's like you're locked into the extra 300.
Well, I mean, you
And
you can always do bulk sales like everyone else. Buy a recharge potion is $2, but if you buy three, it's only 5.
Yeah,
You're
well,
saving
and
a buck.
but yeah,
Same
but
thing.
what I'm saying is that this is a pretty common technique, and this is one of the things that people complained a lot about in the early days of the 360 with the Microsoft points,
Hmm.
where you couldn't just
Oh God,
spend five
yes.
dollars to buy a game; you had to buy Microsoft points, but
And then no one
you
knew
would
what the hell they
always
were. Yeah.
have extra coin or extra points left over from your purchase,
Mm.
and so you've got that stupid psychological effect of, man, I got
I've wasted
$3 sitting in there doing nothing. What can I buy that will eliminate that $3,
Yeah,
and
that's
you end up
part.
spending more than you
Exactly.
initially
That's
wanted
another
to.
problem with the abstraction, because it's like, okay, I need to buy something that costs 20 starfish, and I've got 17, but I can't just buy 3 starfish. I have to buy another pack of 20, and now I have a bunch of starfish left over, but which is not enough to buy something else. I got to buy more starfish. Stop doing that. I think eliminating
Yeah,
that
80
abstraction
points was
error.
$1, and on a
Yeah. I
yeah, that was the thing that really annoyed a lot of people, was just the it wasn't a 1-to-1 ratio. It was a
Yeah.
stupid
But my point
thing.
is, this is just one example that could be legislated, or the game industry could do on its own, that could help mitigate the problems that we see with people overspending, getting sucked into that
Yeah,
compulsive buying. That could, maybe it would be a complete failure, but something like that, rather than no loot boxes, no this, which again, I wouldn't mind, because screw loot boxes. I I can't imagine there is any gamer, like not one gamer on the face of the earth, that is like, no, no, I like spending money on the chance to get stuff. you know, I I think I'm no, I don't like that, and everyone should think like me. I'd rather just pay the flat fee for the game, and if it's got additional
yeah,
content, fine. Like Iceborne for Monster Hunter World, that comes out later this year. It's $30 or $40 or whatever. I'm just gonna pay $40 for Iceborne, and then I'll have Iceborne. I don't need to keep dropping money in a box to
yeah,
get parts of the game, or the game. I don't want to do that. I just want to buy the thing I want to play with. So I would not miss my loot boxes or microtransactions. There are people out there that are defending loot boxes, sadly, says Chaos. Most of them, I'm sure there are, and I've heard some of them, and they come off as disingenuous. They come off as, you're attacking my hobby, or you're attacking a thing I do, because I'm spending money on this stuff. So of course I'm going to defend it, because I kind of feel bad that I'm spending all this money on it. Yeah, mm. But I don't think games would be less fun. I don't think loot boxes have made games more fun. They've made them worse,
yeah,
and potentially more expensive, and potentially destructively expensive for some people.
yeah. But going back to like trading card games like Magic the
Yeah.
Gathering and Pokemon. One difference that I see with the way booster packs work and the way loot boxes work is that with loot boxes, there's no guarantee that you're going to get something useful out of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you could spend $5 on a loot box and end up getting jack squat. But with Magic the Gathering, you can buy a booster pack and get 10, 12 cards, however many is in a booster pack these days. And even if you don't get the card you want, every single one of the cards in that pack can be used to make a deck that's playable, that
They're all
is good.
viable. Yeah.
They're all viable cards that can be used in conjunction with other cards to make a competitive strategic deck. And
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 a lot of these games, even if you get dupes, you can stack your deck with the same card, if you want. So
yeah, if you want, and that's the thing that always that I find to be the defining trait is that if everything you get from a loot box has some strategic use in the game, that might be okay to me, even if it's not the stuff you want right away.
it,
But if you have a 1 in 2,700 chance of getting the really good item out of this loot box, but every other item is just going to be some stupid cosmetic thing, that to me is a waste of money. You know.
well, I actually there is fun to be had with the ooh. There's a surprise in the box. What's going to be in there? I mean, because Monster Hunter is essentially a loot box game. It's just the loot boxes are big dinosaurs. So
Yeah.
you run around the game, you smack a big loot box in the head with a stick until it dies, and then you get to open it up and carve parts off of it. And it's like,
Yeah.
this is what I got. I didn't get anything I needed. I got to go smack another loot box. But here's the thing: I paid $50, $60 for the game, whatever. I get to do it over. I don't have to pay for the
Yeah.
honor. I don't have to
You don't
pay
have to
every
pay
time I
five.
hunt a Devil Joe or something.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the things too. It's like I make fun of Monster Hunter about. It's like you go and you kill this, 50-foot long, 20-ton monster,
You
and
poor
you're
people.
trying to get
I
one.
got to tuck the hair.
You're trying to get a scale off of it, and this thing's completely covered in scales, but you don't find the scale. It's like,
Yeah,
what?
that is one of the weird things. It's like, oh, I really needed a Diablos horn. It's got one. Go get it. It's got
Yeah.
two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man. But yeah,
Zinogre hair. Oh well, didn't get any this time. Just grab a tough handfuls of that crap, man. Skin that puppy.
yeah.
It's like I mean I don't know if the people in Monster Hunter are like, is it like an environmental one with nature kind of thing? It would be greedy to take too much for the from the corpse. We should only take three things, three good things, and just at random because we don't want to be greedy, and then we'll leave it to return to nature for all the scavenger creatures. Maybe that is the idea, or it's just a video game.
It's
But
the
yeah,
complete
it is
it's the
kind of weird.
complete opposite of the native the Native American thing, where it's like they use every part of the deer or every part of the buffalo, so that you're not wasting anything. Nope, this one you kill a 20-ton monster and you take
Yeah.
5 pounds of stuff off of it, you're good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll try to basically saying the same thing. I think in the canon of the story, the idea is you're slaying a monster, and you get a commission of zenny or whatever the hell the currency is, from the Hunters Guild, and you say, okay, you can get a few random parts, but the rest of the carcass is going towards the people of Townsville or whatever the hell the place, your base
From the
camp. Yeah,
city of Townsville.
exactly. You get a horn and you get some fur and a scale and a talon, but the rest of that is being chopped up and divided equally among the other people who have to live here. You can't have the whole thing, sir or ma'am. Your
Yeah.
cat would think less of you if you did that. So,
Oh man. Yeah.
all right. So, good chat. Do we want to talk about movies or anything before we
No,
go?
I think we're at an hour and a half. I think that's
Oh
good
God,
for
it's
tonight.
8:30.
Yeah.
All right. So, I'm glad we had this talk. E3 is week after next.
Yeah,
So,
2 weeks from now. So yeah, not next week, but the week after will be our big E3 episode.
yep.
So
So you'll definitely want to be here for. Oh God, we've gone
two,
hours.
3 hours.
Oh,
Yeah, I think
I think
last
we've
year's
done
was
like
3 hours.
4 hours. Oh
Yeah.
God. So good times are had by all. So okay,
Yeah.
that's it for the show. Andrew Eisen here. Eisen is how you spell the last name. Plug it into YouTube and you'll find my videos, and at Andrew Eisen on Twitter. I make poop jokes there. Zachary, plug away.
All right, you can follow me on Twitter. Oh, excuse me, at EZ Night, where I talk about gaming, politics, and other things that catch my interest. And if you're interested in my game development work, check out DK_gaming on Twitter and DivineKnightGaming.com. And if you're interested in the Oklahoma game development scene, check out OKGameDevs on Twitter and OKGameDev.com.
All right, that is it for us. Have a lovely week, everybody. Hey, it's June already. Go
Yeah.
see Godzilla or something. I'll try to do that if I don't have to work. That's it for us. We are out of here. Have a nice week, and we'll see you next Saturday. Take care, everyone.
All right.
Bye
See ya.
bye.
Bye.